Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be walking through the Kernel platform, which is the next episode in my series where I'm looking at all of the investing platforms that we can use here in New Zealand. My first video was on Sharesies, so if you haven't seen that, I'll put a link in the top right. Don't forget to subscribe, and without further ado, let's get into it. So when we log into Kernel, the first thing we can see is our dashboard, and the most important number that we can see here is of course our portfolio value, which is the value of all of our funds that we own, basically amalgamated so that we can see how much money that we currently have. Now if we look at the number below that, we can see the total deposits. Now as you can see here, I have total earnings that are negative, and that's basically where the portfolio value is less than what the total deposits are. So I've essentially put in more money than what it's currently worth. Now if I was more fortunate, the portfolio value would be higher than the deposits. If we look to the right of that, we can change the time scale, and this is where we can see how the portfolio value has changed over time. Now this chart doesn't have anything around our total deposits throughout that period of time, what our profit level was, so it's not much use other than seeing what our portfolio value has been over time. However, this is heavily influenced by deposits, and though you can see it going up here, it's actually really come down. It's just the portfolio value's gone up because I've put more money in. So this is something to be conscious of here. As we scroll down, we can see our wallet balance, which we'll get into shortly, and we can also see our investments. So at a glance, we can see the number of units we have in each fund, and we can see the current value of those units. As we scroll down even further, we have an auto invest option, which we'll get into shortly. And we also can see at a glance where our money is invested. What funds is it in? So it's really good here to have a pie chart so we can see at a glance that the majority of my funds are of course in the Global 100 fund, which has around 72% of my money in it. At the bottom right, we also have a chat button. Now if you click this during business hours, you can chat to somebody in their team in real time. Now there's a few other ways that you can contact Kernel. During business hours, they also have a phone number, which we'll show shortly. You can also email them at this email address here, and you can also send a message here outside of business hours. So you put in your name, email, phone number, and your message just down there. If we look at the bottom, we also have a number of options here. So the first thing you can see is the Help Center. Now what the Help Center has is all the answers to any queries you have. If anything in this video doesn't make sense, or you forget something, or you just are curious about the platform, you can simply write it in here. So if I put in sell, I should find something around selling my investments. And as we can see, there are a number of articles that we can click on. And the good thing with Kernel is they make it really easy to read. But of course, if you do have any outstanding questions, you can always just use the chatbot and chat to them in real time. So if we go back to the dashboard, we'll see what other options we have. So we can see terms and conditions and privacy policy, which is pretty standard. The other option we have here is PDS, and this stands for the Product Disclosure Statement. Now this is a very important document because it includes all the disclosures that Kernel are making about their funds. And before you make any investments whatsoever, this is something you have to check out. So if we click on that, we'll see a download link come up. So if we click download, and then we have that document downloaded. And if we click on that, we can see a lot of information about Kernel. So as we scroll down, some of the information we can see up here, how we're taxed, where our money will be invested in. And if we continue scrolling, we can see all the funds that they offer, a brief description, the risk indicators, and also some of the management fees. As we continue scrolling, we can see a number of other pieces of information, and it would be a good idea if anybody that's using Kernel or plans to in the future has a read through this document, as it's a great resource to know more about where you'd be investing your money. And importantly, doing your own due diligence and not just listening to people on YouTube. So if we go back to the dashboard, the next option that we have is looking at the invest screen, and we get two different options here. We either have funds or auto invest. So let's look at funds first. So what we can see here is every fund that's offered by Kernel, and you can see that they currently offer 11. On the left hand side, we can see a filter, and this allows us to abbreviate this list from 11 down to our specific selection we're looking for. So for example, if we're wanting to know what funds we're currently invested in, we can click on My Investments, and those will show up. In my example, I have 5. If we want to invest in just New Zealand companies and funds that invest in those, we can click Local. If we're interested in real estate, we can click Property, or ESG, which stands for Environmental, Social and Governance. And if you're looking at these funds, you have a number of different options as well. If we look below that, we can see the risk indicator. Now because these funds are investing in shares are generally riskier in the investment spectrum. Not as much as cryptocurrency, a lot more than cash, term deposits, bonds, anything like that. So generally these funds are between a 5 and a 7. On the 5 side, you're looking at diversified funds that are investing in relatively large companies. And if you look towards the 7 side, it's more speculative bets. Small companies, they could grow to 5 times their size, or they could go to 0. So just be conscious of this when you're looking through the funds. Now if we use our filter and you found a fund that you might like, you can simply click on it and it will come up with a lot more information to look into. Now what I generally do is I go straight to the full overview, and if we click on this, we can see a lot more information about the fund. So the first thing we can see is the fund overview, which gives us a bit more information about what the fund invests in. So if we look at this one, we can see it invests in blue chip companies, which are among the largest in New Zealand. It also tracks an index and provides broad diversification across a range of sectors. If we go down from there, we can see a number of stats. And we can see that in the last 5 years, this fund has averaged a return of around 13%, which is pretty healthy. We can also see the management fee when dividends are paid and what the dividend yield is. So this is quite useful for us. As we scroll down, we can also see the price history and how that unit price has changed over time. Below that, we can also see the performance, and this summarizes that information for us so we can easily see what the past performance has been like. And as we scroll down further, we can see the range of returns. Now this is something really cool that Kernel offers, because for new investors, they might not be so willing to make huge losses in their first year. So by seeing this, you can see the worst situation in the past 10 years for a 12-month period was a loss of 3.66%. So this is full disclosure that you may lose your money when you invest in these things, which is what many probably won't advertise with. To the right of that, we can see the growth of $10,000. Now, this isn't so useful because it's looking at if we put $10,000 in 5 years ago, what it would be worth today. And of course, we can't base future performance on past performance, so I don't really look at this too much. And if we go down from there, this is something really cool that Kernel does, and they offer full transparency into what these funds hold at a point in time. Now this is quite cool because it's all within the platform. We don't have to do our own research outside of the platform to do this. For example, if you invest on Sharesies and you invest in a Smart Shares fund, you have to go to their website to work out what is actually held by that fund. So if we look at this fund, we can see that the biggest holdings are in Fisher & Paykel Healthcare, Auckland International Airport, and Spark. And we can see the percentages as at the end of last month as well. So this provides a bit of flavour around what we're actually investing in. As we scroll down from there, we can also see the sectors and their weightage, and we can also see the risk level. So we can see this as a risk level 5. If we scroll up from there, we can also see your investment. And this is where there's a bit more information about our personal profit and loss by investing in this fund so far. Now you'll only see this if you've actually invested in that fund. So what you can see from my numbers here is that I've made a total return of negative $92, so hasn't been so good so far for me. So essentially I've put in $1,120 and it's currently worth around $1,027. You can also see I've made 13 trades, I own 271 units, and I've got around 10% of my portfolio in this fund. So that's really good information just to know. As we go down from there, we can see how our investment has changed over time and what our portfolio value has been. And we can also see our transaction history when we've bought and when we've sold, or maybe we've received a dividend as well. So if we've looked at all this information and we've decided, yes, I want to purchase this, we can look at the left-hand column and we can find the buy button. Now all we have to do here is do a market buy, so there's no limit orders like there is on Sharesies. So what we do here is we put in how much we want to invest, for example $10, and we can do anything upwards of 1 cent. We click review order, we click that we've read the product disclosure statement, which is the one we discussed earlier, and for convenience we can simply click the downloaded button here. And once you're happy with that, and you're happy to transact on Monday in my case, then you press place order. And there we have it, our buy order is confirmed. So this purchase will go through on Monday. Now it's important to know that Kernel, you can only buy your funds on Mondays and Wednesdays at midday, 12 o'clock. Now this is different from Sharesies where you can purchase them on the exchange. And this is one of the key differences to be aware of, and that goes the same for selling as well. Now if we wish to sell our investments, we already own some units and we want to sell them, we can click the sell button. And just like with purchasing, we simply say how many units we want to sell. In this case, we'll say 10. You review the order, and you can see the date at which it'll go through, the estimated sell value as well. If we're happy with that, we can click confirm and sell. And it's as easy as that. Kernel make it really easy to trade on their platform. Now if we go back to the invest button, the other option we have is auto invest. Now that process I just went through is when you want to purchase funds on an ad hoc basis. Now sometimes we want to dollar cost average, and we don't want to set this up every time we want to make a purchase. For example, if we want every Monday to purchase $50 of one fund, $10 in another, then this is a really easy way to do that. So what we do is we click Create New Plan, create my own, and we tell Kernel when we want to make this investment. For example, we want to do it weekly, and we want that to start from tomorrow. So we can simply go in here, we can click tomorrow's date, and then we can click the continue button. Now on this screen, what we can do is dictate how much money every week that we put into each of these funds. For example, if we want to put $10 in here, and we also want to put $10 in the Global Infrastructure Fund, then that comes up to $20. And we can see that summary just here at the bottom. If we click continue, it'll come up with a breakdown of how that $20 will be invested. And as we can see, $10 in this fund and $10 in that fund. We can see when the frequency is, when the next trading date is, so that's when we first make this $20 purchase. And we can also see the total amount, which again is $20. And if we're happy with that, we can simply click confirm auto investment. And it's as simple as that. Every Monday, Kernel will make an investment of $20, $10 into each of these funds on your behalf. The only thing you need to do on your side is ensure that you have $20 in your Kernel account every Monday. And if that money isn't there, the trade simply won't go through. So just be conscious of this. So now we've looked at the different investment options. Now we can look at the wallet. Now what we can see in here is our total amount of money that's sitting around in our wallet. So in my case, I have $240. And below that, we can see the transaction history. And this is everything that has affected our wallet balance. Now the basic items you're likely to see here is your top-ups, your withdrawals, your purchases, your sales, and your dividends. And we can use the filter by to narrow those down. One of the other things to take note of here is the Kernel fee. Now there is a fee of being on the Kernel platform, and that's $3 a month, provided that you have over $1,000 invested in the platform. If you have below $1,000, your membership will be free. Now if you want to deposit funds, there's only one way to do this, and we have to make a bank transfer. What many people would do is they'd set up a payee for Kernel. So it means you don't have to fill in these details each and every single time. So you simply have the account name, the account number, and the reference number. And this basically means that when you deposit money with Kernel, they know who to give the money to using your unique reference number. And if we look at withdrawals, all you have to do is simply put in how much you want to withdraw. For example, $100. If you have a unique reference to know that that money is coming from Kernel, you can write that in here. And you can also select your bank account. Now it's important to know here that you can only put in one bank account. This is to ensure that your money is going back to you and you're not using Kernel as an intermediary to send the money somewhere dodgy. And if you're happy with that, you click confirm withdrawal. And that money will generally arrive in your account within a couple days. So that was the wallet screen. The next one is insights. And this is something cool where we can see where our money has been invested. So by investing in these 5 funds that you can see in the left-hand column, you can see my blended portfolio here. So you can see roughly 10% of my money, or $1,088, is invested in Apple. And as we scroll down from there, you can see how much is invested in Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and Johnson & Johnson, and so forth. And you can see that I'm diversified in 296 companies. In the left-hand column, you can also narrow this down by the different funds that I'm invested in. For example, the NZ20, you've got Fisher & Paykel Healthcare, as we saw before. In the Global 100, you can see Apple and Microsoft, and so on and so forth. So this is something really cool because if you had to do this manually, say you invested in smart shares, you'd have to manually go to each and every single fund, work out what they're invested in, and you'd have to make these computations yourself. But with Kernel, they make this very transparent, and that's something I really enjoy about the platform. Now we're also in a time where there's a lot of geopolitical tension with Russia invading Ukraine, and many investment funds are looking into where they're invested and making sure they have no exposure to Russian companies. Now we can also look at this on Kernel. So if we go up here to the countries button, we can see exactly where our money is invested. So you can see the dark green is in the USA, where a majority of my money is invested. And we can see that here with 61% of my money invested in the USA. Now if we look at Asia, we can see that there is no money invested in Russia. So if this is something really important to us, where we want to know where our money has been invested geographically, we can easily see that on these screens. And if we look at New Zealand and Oceania, you can see I have 10% of my money in New Zealand. So this is a really cool feature that Kernel has. So now we've had a look at how to make our investments, how to research the funds, how to sell these funds as well, also how our wallet works, and some insights around where our money has been placed. We can also look at the Learn tab. Now if we click on this, we can see a number of different pieces of information. The first is looking at the blog and related videos. So Kernel put out some thought pieces from time to time around different topics. For example, we can see things here around ETFs, index funds, and taxes. So if this is something interesting to you, this is where you can come to. If we look at the other options, we also have frequently asked questions. Now I find that this is really similar to the Help Center. However, you can also use the search function or we can scroll down to find answers to many of your common queries. Another option that we have is the tools and calculators. So there are 3 different things here. You've got your Future You calculator, a foreign tax calculator, and an international guide to tax. Now the Future You calculator is really useful if you want to see what your money would be worth today if you invested, say, 2, 3, 4 years ago in one of these various funds. The foreign tax calculator is useful if you have investments overseas. However, if you just invest in Kernel, this probably isn't as much use. And the international tax guide is useful for knowing more about international investing. Another option we have here is podcast. And this is where we can get a link to Kernel's investing podcast called It's No Secret. And the last option we have is looking at events. Now, when Kernel hosts events in non-COVID times, this is probably where you'll see those advertised. But what we can also see here is 2 different YouTube videos where Kernel is sharing more about their platform, and this might be useful to you. So they have one here on personal finance and also their investing roadshow from last year. If you scroll down from here, you can also see their phone number. So as we spoke about earlier, there are 4 different ways to contact Kernel, and this is one of those other options during weekdays. So that summarizes some of the main areas that we can look at on the Kernel website. The 2 final areas that we can look at is our profile and settings, and also reports. So if we look at reports, we can see that there are 3 different reports that we can create. Firstly, an investment report, a general ledger report, and a management account. And we can also select the reporting period. And this is great if you want to get a report about how your investments have changed over time and what your transaction history has been. You also have the option at looking at tax reports. However, as I've been with Kernel for a limited amount of time, nothing is displayed here. However, if you did want a specialist report, you can just message Kernel as well. And the final screen that we have access to is profile and settings. Now I won't scroll down because I don't want you seeing my information, but you have some basic information there around who you are, what your email is, what your phone number is, and your IRD number. The other thing we have here is security, and this is where we can turn on 2-factor authorization, and we can also change our password. So that summarizes some of the main things that we can do on the Kernel platform. It's one that I personally use, and I really enjoy their interface. If you're looking for more information about Kernel, you can simply go to their website at kernelwealth.co.nz. I don't have any affiliate links or anything like that, so all I'm doing here is walking you through the platform so you can make an informed decision whether this is the investment platform for you. So if you like this video, please make sure to subscribe to my channel and also check out my Sharesies video, which I'll try and include in the top right corner. So thanks for watching, and please stay tuned for the next videos as I'll be covering the likes of Stake, Hatch, and Tiger Brokers next. Thanks, and see you on the next one.